3 months later, the courthouse was packed. Thomas Harper sat at the defense table, no longer looking like the powerful man who had walked into Daniel's hospital room with a confident smile. His expensive suit could not hide the fear in his eyes. The prosecutor presented the evidence one piece at a time: the financial records, the secret accounts, the environmental reports, the photographs of contaminated land, and finally the warehouse security footage. When Thomas appeared on the screen, watching Daniel being attacked, the courtroom went silent. I sat beside my son. Daniel reached for my hand. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded. "I am now." Thomas's attorney argued that the footage did not prove he ordered the attack. Then Marcus took the stand. He explained how we had verified every document and traced millions of dollars through the shell companies. The final witness was a contractor who had been paid to dispose of toxic waste. He told the court that most of it had simply been buried beside the river. Thomas received a lengthy prison sentence. The Harper companies were forced into bankruptcy, and millions of dollars were recovered for the cleanup and affected families. But justice did not erase what happened to Daniel. His scars remained. Some nights, loud noises still woke him. Some days he struggled with anger. So did I. But we rebuilt our lives slowly. A year later, Daniel invited me to the river. The cleanup was finished. Children were playing near the water again. Families were walking along the new trail. Daniel handed me a small photograph. It showed the river before the contamination. "I want you to keep this," he said. "Why?" "Because you were the one who believed me when everyone else wanted the story to disappear." I smiled. "You were telling the truth. I only refused to let them bury it." He hugged me. For years, I had believed courage belonged to people who were fearless. I know better now. Courage is being terrified and still opening the door. It is seeing your child broken and choosing to stand instead of collapse. It is refusing money when money is being used to buy your silence. The Harpers believed my son was powerless because he had no fortune, no influence, and no powerful friends. They were wrong. He had something they could never buy: the truth. And he had a mother who would fight until somebody finally listened. That was their biggest mistake. They thought beating my son half to death would end the story. It only gave the story a voice. I spent the entire night sitting beside Daniel's hospital bed. Every time he moved, I woke up. Every time the machines beeped, my heart stopped. By morning, the police had taken my statement, but something about their questions bothered me. One officer asked, "Did your son have enemies?" I almost laughed. Daniel is an accountant. His biggest enemy is usually a spreadsheet. But then I remembered his words. I found something important enough to get him beaten nearly to death. When Daniel finally woke up, I leaned toward him. "Tell me what you found." His eyes moved toward the door. "Is anyone listening?" "No." He took a painful breath. "Mom, go to my apartment." "Why?" "Under the floorboard in my bedroom, there's a blue metal box." "What's inside?" "Everything." Before I could ask more, Daniel closed his eyes again. I went home that afternoon. His apartment looked exactly as I remembered it. His coffee mug was still beside the sink. His jacket was hanging behind the door. But underneath his bedroom floorboard, I found the box. It was heavier than I expected. Inside were dozens of documents: bank statements, property records, invoices, photographs, and a handwritten list of names. At the top of the first page was one name: Harper Development. I knew the company. Everyone in our town did. The Harper family had built shopping centers, luxury apartments, hotels, and office buildings. Their name was on charity foundations, hospital wings, and even the town's football stadium. People called Thomas Harper a businessman. But Daniel's documents told a different story. Millions of dollars had been approved for environmental cleanup along the river, yet the cleanup companies had received the money without completing the work. The same money was then transferred into several private companies that appeared to exist only on paper. I kept digging. Then I found photographs of the riverbank: dark liquid leaking into the soil, rusting chemical containers, children living only a few hundred yards away. My hands started shaking. Then I found something worse: a medical report. Dozens of residents had suffered unexplained illnesses, and the dates matched the years Harper Development had been dumping waste near the river. Daniel hadn't simply discovered financial fraud. He had discovered something that could destroy the Harper family. I called his friend Marcus, an investigative journalist. When he arrived, he stared at the documents for nearly a minute without speaking. Then he looked at me. "Mrs. Bennett." "What?" "If these records are real, your son wasn't attacked because he knew too much." He pointed toward the blue box. He was attacked because he was about to prove it. And suddenly, I understood why Thomas Harper had come to the hospital. He hadn't come to apologize. He had come to find out whether Daniel had told me where the evidence was. The next morning, Marcus arrived at my house with a laptop under his arm. "I found something," he said. I knew immediately that it was serious. He opened the laptop and showed me a video from a security camera near the river. The footage was grainy, but Daniel was unmistakably visible. 4 men surrounded him. One grabbed him from behind. Another struck him. Daniel fell to the ground, but he kept trying to protect something beneath his jacket. My stomach turned. Then the camera captured something that made my blood run cold. Standing several feet away was Thomas Harper. He wasn't trying to stop the attack. He was watching. Marcus paused the video. "Look at his hand." Thomas was holding a small brown folder, the same type of folder Daniel had mentioned before the attack. "Can we prove that's Thomas?" I asked. Marcus nodded. "We can." He zoomed in. Thomas's face became clearer. Then we noticed something else. A distinctive gold ring on his right hand. The Harper family crest was engraved across it. But the video wasn't our only evidence. Marcus had contacted a former Harper employee who had agreed to speak anonymously. Her name was Elaine. She told us the company had been hiding environmental reports for years. They knew the river was contaminated, she said. They paid inspectors to change the numbers. "Why did you leave?" I asked. Elaine looked down. "Because my brother got sick." She handed Marcus a folder. Inside were copies of internal emails. One message came directly from Thomas Harper. "Destroy the original reports. Keep the financial records clean." I stared at the sentence. That was the proof we needed. But before we could send everything to the authorities, my phone rang. "Thomas Harper," I answered. "You've been asking questions," he said. "Yes." "You should stop." "No." There was silence. Then his voice became colder. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." I looked at Daniel's photograph sitting on my table. "I understand perfectly. I can make your life very difficult. You already hurt my son." "I didn't hurt anyone." "Then why were you standing there while 4 men beat him?" He stopped breathing for a moment. I knew then that he hadn't expected me to have the footage. His voice changed. "What do you want?" "The truth. You'll regret this." I smiled. "No, Thomas." I looked at Marcus. "We're going to make sure everyone knows it." I had secretly recorded the entire conversation, and now we had the documents, the witnesses, the video, and his own voice. The Harpers had spent years believing their money made them untouchable. They were about to discover that evidence doesn't care how rich you are, and neither does justice. The following morning, Marcus sent everything to the state investigators: the financial records, the environmental reports, Elaine's testimony, the security footage, and the recording of Thomas Harper threatening me. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then at 6:40 on Friday morning, I heard several vehicles outside my house. I looked through the window. Black SUVs. Investigators stepped onto my porch. One of them showed me a warrant. "Mrs. Bennett, we need to speak with you." My heart started pounding. Not because I was afraid, because I knew it had finally begun. By noon, Harper Development's offices had been searched. Bank accounts were frozen. Computers were taken. Employees were questioned. And by evening, every major news station in the state was reporting on the investigation. Thomas Harper tried to deny everything. He claimed the documents were fabricated. He claimed the attack on Daniel had nothing to do with him. But then the security footage was released. The entire town saw him standing beside the warehouse while Daniel was beaten. And when investigators compared the footage with the financial records, the pieces fit together perfectly. The money stolen from the environmental projects had been transferred through companies controlled by Harper executives. The contaminated river wasn't an accident. The missing cleanup funds weren't a mistake. It had all been planned. Weeks later, Thomas Harper was arrested outside his mansion. I watched the news from Daniel's hospital room. He was awake now, still bruised, still recovering, but alive. When I told him Thomas had been arrested, Daniel smiled for the first time since the attack. "You actually did it, Mom." I shook my head. "No, you did." He looked confused. "You found the truth," I told him. "I just refused to let them bury it." Months passed. Daniel eventually walked without pain. The river was cleaned. Families who had been ignored for years finally received compensation, and the Harper empire collapsed. But the biggest change happened inside Daniel. Before the attack, he had been quiet. He avoided confrontation. He believed doing good work was enough. Afterward, he became an investigator who helped expose financial crimes. One evening, we stood beside the river. The water was clear again. Daniel looked at me. "Do you ever wish you had stayed out of it?" I thought about the hospital, the bruises, the threats, the fear. Then I looked at my son. "No." He smiled. Neither of us would ever forget what happened. But the Harpers had made one terrible mistake. They thought hurting my son would make him disappear. They thought money could buy silence. They thought fear could control us. They were wrong. Because sometimes, the person standing between a powerful family and the truth isn't a lawyer, a detective, or a politician. Sometimes it's simply a mother who refuses to stop fighting. And that was the one thing the Harpers never saw coming.